Okay, so when we're talking about night photography, we're talking about night photography, low shutter speed on a tripod. Okay, I recommend a sturdy tripod, maybe one that's carbon fiber that's sturdy but not so heavy to carry around, or simply maybe a travel one if you can. If you don't have some of you guys that have the mirrorless cameras are not quite as heavy, so a small travel tripod will probably be ideal. Okay, so keep that in mind. But the first thing you're going to do is you're going to put the camera on a tripod, of course. Now, if your camera has a image stabilization, or your lens does, please disable it. Now, image stabilization is fine when you're shooting handheld. However, when you have that camera on a tripod, then there is no movement, okay? The camera lens has a gyro type of thing that's looking for movement. When you have the IS enabled, so therefore, it's gonna probably create a problem when there is no movement, and it might give you a bad image, okay? So disable that as well, okay? Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna put the camera on manual mode. Now there is a way to do this on aperture priority, but I prefer using manual mode, okay? I like to do my night photography, and I've been doing this for a long time, so this is my preferred method. I like to dial in an aperture of 8.8. I'm sorry, 8.0. Okay? Remember your f-stop, your aperture should be about 8. That's a good closed aperture right in the middle. So it's a good safe one to go. Now, because you have low light at f8, it's gonna drop the light quite a bit, right? Because that's what you want to do when you're doing night photography. Because why? You want to keep your ISO as low as you can. So you're gonna put f8, and then your ISO is gonna be somewhere around 100 or 200, no more than that. This is where you're gonna get the corresponding shutter speed, which is going to be way overexposed. In other words, it's going to be dark, right? So at this point, what you're going to do, because you're in manual mode, you're going to have your meter. Remember your meter? Either at the bottom of your camera or the side of the camera. And it's going to be way off, okay? And your image is going to look dark because you have closed aperture and you have a low ISO. So at this point, you begin to move the wheel, your aperture wheel on your camera, and you're going to move it till your exposure gets all the way to the middle. Once your exposure is in the middle, your image should look good, and at that point, you're good to take your photo. What's going to happen at this point, the camera is going to give you a shutter speed of anywhere between 10 seconds up to about 20 seconds, depending on the light that the sensor is seeing, okay? Therefore, you are not supposed to touch the camera at all. So how do we fire the shutter button? As I stated before, you may want to have a cable release which goes into your camera, and you're able to fire your shutter this way. Now, there are some cable releases that are wireless. They'll communicate with the camera and will allow you to fire the camera. In the event that you do not have a cable release available, the next best thing for you to do is to activate what? Your timer, correct. Your timer, most cameras have a timer of either 3 or 10 seconds. Okay, it's up to you what you want to do. I like to do 10 seconds myself. But that way I make sure I walk away from the camera and leave it alone, okay? Now, This camera release is pretty old. I've seen a lot of new ones, but it still works for me, you know. So I set the camera this way. Once I'm satisfied that my exposure is proper, then I will fire the shutter. The shutter is going to open up, and it's going to stay open for a period of either 10 seconds, 20 seconds, or it could even vary to some other ones, okay? The only thing that I suggest you do is don't touch the camera while the shutter is open. It's capturing in motion. Anything that goes in front of the camera, such as the vehicle, you're probably gonna just get a streak. But anything that's inanimate, objects such as a building or a sign, it's going to come out really, really sharp. Probably even better than on a regular photograph that you will take handheld, because you're capturing really, really sharp images. Now, the only thing that you might encounter, because you do have low light, is the ability for the camera to focus, okay? So what I do, if there's not enough light for the camera to focus on anything, I take the camera lens off of automatic focus, and I switch it from automatic focus to manual focus. Okay, this is where your eye comes in. When you switch from automatic focus to manual focus, now it's going to be up to you to dial in your focal ring. Remember that on your lens, you have your focal ring, focal length, and then you also have your focus ring. Yes, sir.
Will it matter if you have a fast lens or not?
Not in this case, because you're shooting at f8.
Okay.
You don't need a fast lens for that. Good question, though. A lens, remember, a fast lens only comes into play if you want to do a wide open, such if you're doing it, for example, handheld, and you want to do a 2.8, then you will need a fast lens. In this case, any old lens can do that. Any kind of kit lens can do that. Okay? Now, getting back to what I was talking about with the focusing. Okay? What you will do now is before you take your shot, is you've got everything else dialed in, right? Now you will look through the viewfinder, move your focus ring, which is the one closest to the outer edge, and then keep moving it until the image looks sharp to you. Once the image looks clear and sharp, then leave it alone, hit your shutter button or your timer, and then you're good to go. So we're going to be talking about this for the next couple of weeks until we actually go out and do this on some of the Christmas lights out there in December, okay? Any questions? One thing that I forgot to mention when it comes to night photography is a good rule of thumb to be able to know if you've got it right. Do you guys remember that from before? Anybody? How can you tell if you've got a pretty good night shot? Okay, go ahead.
And I was going to say the starburst.
Exactly. If you look at things like light standards, or lights, light posts, lamps, or whatever they're called, and you'll see like a sunburst, right? If you see like a sunburst instead of a steady light, that means you did it right. And the reason being is that because the gases on the inside of a light bulb are actually moving. Obviously you can't see it, but the camera can. So you'll see, instead of seeing a steady light, you'll see like a starburst kind of a effect. And when you see that starburst, then you know that you're doing it correct. The trick is to drop your shutter speed down to a really low. Usually I get mine, like I said, between 10 and 20 seconds, and I get a pretty good starburst that way. Okay? For those of you, when we go out shooting, for those of you who don't have a tripod, I'll bring in a couple extra ones. See?
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, because for your case, when you're doing lightning photography, you need a tripod.
Yeah, because I remember my hand would get shaky.
A lot of times, yeah, and the thing is, as human beings, we're just not steady enough to really do a handheld shot with low shutter. That's why I recommend a shutter speed of 125 or higher. Anything lower, when you get to about 50, 40, 50, now you're talking about some shakiness. Yes, sir?
Is the leveler important?
Not really. It's up to you. I mean, I've gotten pretty good at my horizon. The level is really for the horizon, Like for example, you go out and take a photo at the beach and you'll see somebody will come up with you see the beach or the ocean like this. Yeah, that's no good. You want it to be,
Yeah, level.
always look at your horizon level. So, I do have one. They sell some little cubes that you can put on top of your camera, that kind of a thing. But I've gotten pretty good with my eye as far as my composition of the image. Okay? Anything else? There's really not much to it. You just gotta get out and do it. I mean, it's fun once you look at the images, and we'll be looking at some pictures right now. I want to show you some images, but in the meantime, this is partly it. Now, there is a way to shoot on a tripod at f8 without going to manual mode. You can do it on aperture priority by dialing in an f8 and your ISO of 100 or 200, and let the camera give you its corresponding shutter speed. The advantage to that is you don't have to worry about your exposure being up. It's always going to give you a proper exposure. So I just happen to like to shoot this way, but an actual easier way would be to do it in aperture priority. And we're going to try that. We'll do it both. You're probably going to find that by doing it on aperture priority, it's actually easier because now you don't have to worry about your exposure. It's going to be automatic. Remember, on aperture priority, the camera gives you the corresponding shutter speed, right? Based on your ISO that you set.